This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, I asked Joey about science tourism. Woo!
Was there a big bang that is somehow... This is what a Joey sounds like. And this is what an executive producer and weird quark, Jess Vander, sounds like.
Hi, this is Jess.
If you were a particle, what particle would you be? Does BuzzFeed have that quiz?
Does it have that quiz? What am I like a... you don't have a ton of options, to be honest with you.
I mean, there's quite a few.
Well, it depends on what level.
Like, I mean, you're like, I don't go...
Like elemental?
I don't go below
Are we on
neutron, electron, and proton. Anything beyond that is...
Well, technically, if you want, the proton has multiple things inside of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, this is the problem.
Like subatomic?
Yeah.
Then you're a down quark.
Well, I don't know.
What a glue
I don't know how to feel. Actually, there's a lot of scientific disses that very naturally formulate themselves. Yeah. So absolutely mean of you.
Yeah. First of all, how dare you? I'm a muon. Second of all,
what have I done?
We have no house cleaning. Rate, review, subscribe. 5 stars, 5 stars. Do things that are nice if you like the show. Send us an email at criticalnonsense@sylvain.co. Check out the website. Our book list is there, continues to grow. What is the website?
This is nonsense.com.
And that's it. Jess, the prodigal daughter returns. You've been away.
I have.
We missed you deeply.
Same.
We got a Technicolor dream coat in anticipation of your return.
What does this mean?
I'm mixing like Joseph in the Technicolor dream coat with the story of the prodigal son. Nonetheless, I did get a Technicolor dream coat, and it's not the season for it, if you're wondering. What do you want to talk to us about today?
I would love to talk about science. Which I know is
I believe in science.
I know it's very dangerous. One, because I'm speaking with you, and you know far more about science than I do. And I
don't
also,
know that that's true.
I think it is. Remember that time that The Economist came for me because of my ignorance? I do. I'm so sorry, sir. But also, I am nervous about it because I was absolutely the jock of my chemistry class in high school. Like, I was the one that needed to be tutored by my friends. And so, like, they would explain things to me, and I helped them study by being the ignorant. They've gone on to earn their PhDs, and I am doing this. But doesn't mean
Do they have a podcast?
But it doesn't mean I'm not interested in science. I've always had an interest in it as sort of like a person who wishes they understood more about it.
Riding the science bench as a science jock.
Yeah, exactly. And so on my vacation finding myself in Geneva, Switzerland, I had to do what any wannabe science person would do, and I went to CERN for the day.
Good for you.
For those who are curious, CERN may be the only scientific destination when you think about it, but also thing that you may have heard of if you have heard of it. It is a research campus that is sort of this collaborative destination for researchers across Europe, and was sort of a post-war solution to reignite the European dominance in science, and were most famous for their proof of the Higgs boson. Man, I'm throwing out some words. The God particle back in 2012. If these are ringing bells, maybe the only other initialism you might have heard is the LHC, which stands for the Large Hadron Collider, which is their latest development in accelerating protons. And I'll tell you right now, I saw no protons and I saw no LHC, but I did learn a lot. I did go on the tour, and I have been so excited by it. And it's crazy to me because they're just, I don't know where else you can go for science tourism. Like, what even is that? And so I figured you'd be into it. I know that this might be a journey in trying to explain some topics that I barely understand, but I'm so fascinated by. So if you just will bear with me, can we talk about how do we make more science tourism happen?
First of all, love it. Second of all, jealous.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Because, I would like to see the large. I mean, I feel like it is also like, I think getting like the tour and some of that probably would make it better. But like even just seeing like the LHC is, whatever, like a kilometer.
No.
Like
many.
Diameter.
Oh, yes. This is one of those things where I need to check myself. But I think the LHC is 26.7 kilometers as a tunnel.
Circumference?
Yeah, circumference.
Yeah.
Big.
Why don't they have a marathon inside the LHC marathon?
That would be crazy.
Yeah, I think it's a little long. It's half a mile long. There'd be room for water stops and things like that.
Yeah, it would be a pretty. I would say a particle can move much faster through that tunnel and more pleasantly, perhaps, through that tunnel than a human.
The electron wins again.
Yeah.
But I think the science tourism thing is like, like the first thing that came to mind is like rocket launches at like the Kennedy Space Center as like maybe is, I don't know that how many people do it.
Right. Yeah, right.
But like that is maybe a thing.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe that might be one of the other things people listening to this podcast may have heard about.
Yeah.
And it's true, like NASA as a capital S science brand as a concept, it's kind of unique. And whatever you think about for that. But I think the thing that fascinated me was how many people were visiting CERN. Like not just school trips, of which there were many, clearly, but there were just many interested people who wanted to be close to invention and possibility. So much so that there is a rat race to get access to these tours. So you cannot book tours in advance. You must be physically in person, logged onto the CERN Wi-Fi. And they only release, maybe a few tours a day, 24 seats or 24 spots per tour. And I can't really describe to you, like I had the app open with the page like ready to book. As soon as the clock turns 12:30, I refresh the page and it's immediately sold out. And I think to myself, like, what is this? A Taylor Swift concert? Like, what is happening here? And I go downstairs to the admin desk and I'm like, hey man, is it possible that the tour is already sold out? And he was like, yes, this happens very frequently. There are at least 2,000 visitors on this campus right now. So 24 spots, especially with people who come in pairs or groups, that's going to get scooped up really fast. And I was like, so it happened in less than a second. I was like, so how does this work? And he was like, you can try again at the next tour, the last tour of the day. So we are camped out on our phones with like the page at the ready. So as the second hand turns to the hour, we press the refresh button and are in this panicked frenzy to try or put our names in, which I think I misspelled my own name, but managed to get the tickets. But I was like, oh my gosh, the adrenaline was pumping and it was very exciting, but also terrifying. Some people traveling, across oceans like me or even countries just to go visit this place. And I was like, what is going on? Like, there's potential for this very exciting thing? Could this not be expanded to be a little bit less crazy?
Well, I mean, it is interesting to think about it as like a sort of like a Hajj. If you're, some people will argue that like for many like people in the secular world, science functions as a sort of religious institution. It does not like check all the boxes, but is kind of like a holdover, right? And so lots of people are studying science or on the more applied side as engineers around the world. And what's interesting about CERN and the LHC is like it is the merger of theoretical and applied sciences in like one of the biggest projects in the world. There are like other collider projects that are happening in the works or planned that will, exceed the LHC soon. But like there is something about that. Like there's something there for a lot of people who have like dedicated their lives. So like you could imagine it being somewhat like a religious experience for certain types of people.
Totally, especially if you are passionate about a subject, or it's just like the chance to be physically proximal to science is so exciting and rare. Like I think inherently science is sometimes very intangible or exclusive. Like you can't have a bunch of people traipsing into a lab messing around with your mice. Like that's not really a public activity. And so being able to have a destination that people dream of going to or even could be excited about is very compelling.
Yeah, I do think what's interesting, it sort of requires like the merger of theoretical and applied sciences to have even a spot that would do that, right? Like rocket launches at some point where that maybe it is like fully into the applied side, like, but many of those things, like the James Webb Telescope has been certainly like this crossover phenomena because of the photography that they put out into the world is the thing that like all of us can sort of sit and be in awe of. But like, like breakthroughs in mathematics, like don't have like the sort of location that you can go to and be like, I'm going to Princeton to see the amplituhedron.
Right. Yes,
like.
Well, and this is where what I think is so interesting is that somehow the one kind of quote unquote science tourism or science spectatorship that we have is weirdly for children. Mm-hmm. And it's like maybe originally the concept of aquariums, zoos, science museums as an example, regardless of the extent to which those institutions successfully are in support of scientific advancement is a separate conversation, I guess. But the idea of like, can't really explain this concept to you in full, really very well. So what I'll try to do is show you like what I can possibly show you, or like try to give you just a little bit of something. And what was really interesting to me is that, that sort of that very like basic rudimentary understanding may feel insufficient to someone who's traveled all this way to come see the how particles are accelerated, but even like what is that? But at the same time, at the other end of the spectrum, you wouldn't want the science to be so dense and so technically correct that it isn't intimidating to engage with.
Right.
And so what I thought was really interesting is that after making it onto the very coveted tour spot, our tour guide was an actual scientist at CERN who just happened to be pretty good at answering questions and explaining things as simply as he possibly could. But what I thought was so brilliant that sort of found that middle ground balance was that he was able to have conversation while simultaneously doing justice to the complexity of the subject. Like I think what can happen when you dumb something down so much is it's just like, and it's that simple and straightforward, when really like the thing that's compelling about science is that it isn't. Like one of the things I learned is that the LHC is actually maybe like 4th gen or something of how many of these they've built before. They started with an electron accelerator and they were like, cool, we learned a lot from that. Now let's try to do protons, but protons are harder, so we're going to have to make a huge ring for it. And then they made an even bigger ring because they wanted it to go even faster. But like, that's me doing a super rudimentary explanation, but you understand, you're like, okay, so it's not like we've learned everything, but we definitely have tried. We're trying to figure out something, and we still haven't really figured everything out that there is to know. Or another thing I learned, I was like, how, it's like, okay, you hear this thing, it's a particle accelerator. How do you accelerate particles? Like, and why is it a circle? Those were like two of the main questions I went in with. And I think like the simple answer is like, well, you need huge magnets to keep the particles from, because like particles will move really fast, but they'll go in a straight line. And if you want to be able to make them go on an infinite racetrack, you need to curve them so that they go around and around and around, because otherwise they'll run into a wall and it won't really work. So you use mega magnets to do that. But because there's centripetal force that makes the particle want to like steer off the track, and if you only have magnets that work so strong, then the only other option you have is to make a huge tunnel. It has to be like a really, really big track that matches the strength of the magnets to keep the particle going around and around. And I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. Like, I'm a dummy, and I can even imagine in my head like what that looks like. I can't imagine what it really looks like, but I can imagine it the way when you read a book, you can start to imagine the character in your head, you know, like in my own mind, I'm picking it up. So I guess that's a long way of saying, I think there's really something exciting about getting the taste of the complicated thing and not just getting the oversimplified thing. And I don't know where we could do more of that. That isn't just like, here's something that's built to be looked at. Like, I wish there were more of a challenge. Yeah.
I mean, I think like it exists today, but not in like tourist like places, right? Like a lot of, you know, like I talk about, like I like watching physics videos on YouTube or science videos on YouTube. Right. Like, not that it is like that balance between it's like kind of learning, but like not really. I'm not becoming an expert in these things. I'm just getting like introduced to the complexity in arenas that I will never become expert in, but just like glimpsing inside is like, cool, that's what you guys are doing? Yeah. You know, like that's neat, right? It very much feels like science tourism in some capacity. I'm just like, oh, so like, what are you guys doing over here? That's cool. But like, nice. Yeah. But like, if you think about, right, like the LHC in terms of particle colliders, I believe is sort of currently the pinnacle, but there are other projects that are
all around the world
that are coming, that will be launching soonish, including like CERN is, what is it called? Like the Future Circular Collider, which is like effectively like 3 times bigger
ring.
Yeah. Bigger.
Short answer is even bigger ring.
Yeah, it basically goes all the way around Geneva, right?
Yes, like, exactly. Which also, they're limited by the mountains, so there's only so big that you can make it. But basically, again, the dummy version of this that I understood was we're reaching maximum magnet strength. And so there's a certain point where it's just like, if we want our particles to go have like a ton of energy, you can't like
we can't make the magnet stronger, just make the ring longer.
Exactly, right. We just need a bigger ring because the magnet's not going to do enough job of pulling them in. I was like, of course.
But there's something about seeing the pinnacle that also, when it physically demonstrates the scale, because there are other instances where, you know, like if you think about a quantum computer, right, if we talk to like a computer science, if we talk to a computer science engineer, maybe they would like make some argument that the quantum computer isn't currently the pinnacle. It is one of the pinnacles, and you can like look at it and it looks beautiful, but it doesn't demonstrate
the concepts,
like in a material way necessarily. That this is like the pinnacle of so many fields.
Right.
Whereas like the LHC is just like, holy shit, look how massive this thing is. Like it somehow, like the physical scale of it, demonstrating the amount of like human hours of research and science that went into making it, feels like for our like simple ape brains, like equates. Whereas like looking at a quantum computer and being like, someone had to figure out like, you know, quantum decay and like all of these, and like qubits and all of these things to be able to like make this thing. And it is a type of machine that does like an entirely different type of computation.
Yes.
But like, you don't like seeing it, you would be like, oh, that's cool. It's like beautiful. It looks like an upside down chandelier or whatever, and then you're like, all right, I'm done.
Yes, well, and actually, so that's where I actually want to challenge the idea that to make science tourism, you have to make something, or you have to be able to show something applied. Like, I actually think the thing that you need is to inspire awe. Like, you need to make someone fully aware of how incredible the thing is. Easy when it is big and expensive.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Easy when it's like in your face and you're like, what is that even? I don't know. But like, concepts can be awe-inspiring if they are explained well enough.
Yeah.
If you use an analogy intelligently enough. Like, there is a way to blow someone's mind, give them, a new way of looking at things.
Like, I thinking about going to a planetarium or something like that, where you're inside one of those like dome screens, like imagine like the sphere in Vegas being used for like science purposes instead of, and maybe it is being like, I don't know what their lineup is like.
Planetarium.
Yeah. Like, but having like a science thing done at like the production scale that they're doing, like the U2 concert or whatever else they're doing there, would be like really awesome. I think that sort of investment in awe, and scale will give you some of that awe as like a stupid ape.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's big.
Like seeing a rocket go off. I've never seen one, but I could imagine you're just like, oh, that thing is so big and it is going up straight into space, exactly. And it is so loud and there's so much energy and heat coming off of it. And like, yeah, you could imagine how that would have that. Or like, I think about like the tokamak, like at Eater, ITER, like not the Eater, the food blog.
The magazine.
Yeah. But like that is also this like massive scale project with like billions of dollars, like trying to make a machine to do nuclear fusion. And you're like, oh, it gets hotter than the sun inside of that thing. That's cool. Seeing things like that. But I'm sure like with like AI, you could like in those like early Watson demonstrations, like as an example, where something that was like, oh shit, it just beat humans, or Deep Blue beat, like, I guess IBM has had like a few good things that they've done here with some of their like computational abilities to like demonstrate what this science has been able to accomplish. And can you think of like other ones? And those, I guess, aren't tourism-y.
The first one I thought of was actually the Mickey Mouse train, the Disney train film, where people like jumped out of their seats because they thought it was so realistic. When now looking back on it, have you seen this?
Oh,
this film?
Like the in like the silent film era when the train was coming straight at them in the theater.
Yeah, and everybody freaked out because they're like, "Oh my gosh, is that train coming for me?" And you look at it now and you're like, "That is not a very realistic looking." Like, that doesn't scare me, but that's only because our technology is so amazing now. I do think that it is harder to create those awe-inspiring moments. Like you have to get pretty creative to come up with something, especially if it doesn't very naturally present itself as like it's a big thing or it's like a loud thing or something like that.
Like VR headsets for the first time, or like I haven't been to one, but I've heard like the 4D, like IMAX 4D, or maybe it's not IMAX, but where it's like their 21 sensory experience, it's like blowing on your neck and like misting your face and stuff like that while you're in a movie.
But this is a perfect example too, though, of how I think we've also become maybe sensibly wary or skeptical of like, oh, this is just a demonstration, but it's not. Like, this is an exaggeration. Take the whole drama with OpenAI and the Scarlett Johansson drama and the what was the video trying to show like a very conversational and very like eerily real AI, and then afterwards it's like, oh, that's not really how it works. And I think the fine line to figure out is, how do you create that awe-inspiring moment but not fake it or not exaggerate it to a point where it no longer is real? Or
well, the awe thing is interesting because I think there is some. I was trying to think about like what are some of the major science driven, like it's everywhere moments that I could think of from like the news cycle in my memory. Because science, like right on the other side of awe is fear. And I think that like threading that needle is probably pretty hard. Like when Dolly the sheep was cloned, it was like everywhere. I mean, it was like magazine covers and like 2020 and Dateline, right? Like it was in the 90s. So like those were like being on, like having a third of an episode of 2020 was a big deal. And it was covered, but like people were also like freaked out. Like, you just cloned a sheep. Are they going to like clone me?
Oh my God. It's true. Although I guess I'd argue on the other side of awe is probably hope. Like the overview effect that astronauts... You can literally
have your pet cloned now when they die. Like,
whoa,
like commercially.
Yeah, that is...
The overview effect? Sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
but
it's
just
true.
Like...
That is actually wildly alarming. But on the other side, potentially exciting and thrilling and makes you feel like you need to be a part of it. The overview effect being, as you taught me, I think, where astronauts, when they are in space, look back at Earth and it is this blue marble, and they think to themselves...
The pale blue dot.
They think to themselves like, oh my gosh, Earth is so small in the vastness of the universe. And not that that's scary, but actually that they feel this immense urge to protect it and like nurture it and be like, oh my gosh, you sweet little thing. Like, I must care for you. And that people have this view quake, this perspective shift. In a positive side, it's true. Like if you can inspire that awe, maybe it goes one way. But done right, you can tap into the right part of the ape brain, I guess. You can also, change people's minds.
Yeah, I guess that, like, bringing it back a little bit, it feels like if you are not, like, naturally, maybe because of your own experience, maybe not naturally, but, like, your experience has been such that you are, like, drawn towards the scientific things, like, then awe maybe is the way to do it, because I think so many of those things are based on like what age you were when you got some moment of like deep inspiration that like sort of set you up going forward to continue to be interested and inspired by science. And so and I think you're right? Like awe, I don't know that awe inherently has a positive or negative valence. Like it feels like it could be neutral, and then there are moments of awe of like I felt so small and I had ego death and it was good, and then it was like I had a moment of awe and then I was terrified. So like it's a compound emotion maybe that it's always going to be followed with like another one.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
A little bit of Newton's pendulum.
But like that's why kids love those like science museum. But I do think I wish there were more like adult science things, like some IMAX experience. Like occasionally you get one, like David Attenborough's like Planet Earth was like really beautiful, and so many people watched it because it was done so well. Yeah. But like
I just want like an incredible theme park. I just want, or like some experience that is just
you pretend like you're a particle being accelerated in a giant collider.
But not like hokey, Yeah. Can it just be intellectually inspiring? Is that too much to ask? Like, gosh, science needs marketers.
Well, Jess, do you want to wrap us up? Should I wrap us up? I don't
even know.
I don't know if am I capable? Welcome to my corner. Come, sit.
I'm already here.
Put your eyes on that electron microscope.
Oh boy.
What do you see down there? Is it a moment of inspiration? Are you considering size and scale of who you are sitting on a pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam? Great, we did our job. 1775. See you next week. Do more science tourism. It's wonderful. And if you can't, I don't know, watch some science videos. It is, I think it's a worthy pursuit to seek out awe and wonder more often. And it is a difficult thing to do, but a life with awe and wonder in it feels richer. We did it?
Did it.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain Produzione.
Brought to you by Particular Particles. We've got only the best.
But we're discerning. As always, we like to thank executive producer. And what are you? You are a neutrino? A Baikonur Cosmodrome? Jess Vander.
We'd also like to thank sound engineer and positively charged Alex Contel.
As always, we'd like to thank our programming coordinator and rare decay, Les Jacobs.
And thanks to our consortium of production crew. Sorry, Gilbert and Nora Masters. Thank you so much.
Our quark gluon plasma.
Yeah.
As always, thanks, Len.
Thanks.
Special thanks.
Special thanks to Mr. Vazowski, Mr. Govin, and Mrs. Govin for inspiring in me a love of science. Also, special thanks to...
Vysotsky?
Yeah.
Do you think they're related to Zach?
Not with a T.
Oh.
Dang. We'd also like to thank, and by we I mean me, the Micropia Museum in Amsterdam. One of the best science museums I've ever been to. Very small and very full of little things.
It's just like tiny.
Just like so small.
So they're like so little.
It's like that's a microbe maybe in my mind. For real.
We would like to thank the Amplitude because it won an award last year or this year. Amplitude. Let's just see. It won Frontiers of Science Award.
Wow.
Like 10 years after it was discovered. Many dimensions. It is able to do Feynman diagrams real quick instead of millions of like lines for Feynman diagrams, which, you know, obviously I definitely know what Feynman diagrams are, and it's not like confusing when you're doing quantum physics calculations like we like all do, right? And it's just like, oh, thanks, Amplitude.
So helpful in my day-to-day.
You multidimensional geometry.
Yes, like pretty essential. We'd also like to thank science humor. Scientists just are so funny, and they name things like somebody's like, you know, we should name this. We should name it the cosmic microwave background. And we should use the word microwave because that does have scientific meaning. But also, can't we use that in other ways? Or like gluons. It's like, you know what it does? Think about it. Glue stuff. Oh man, there are like I should come up with better examples. But there are things where definitely a scientist was like, yeah, I discovered a thing, so I get to name it something funny.
Charm and strange
quarks.
Particles, quarks.
Yeah, exactly.
Up, down, charm, strange, top and bottom.
And beauty.
And beauty, that's a new one.
I know, isn't that amazing?
Strange action at a distance.
It's not like ha funny, okay? I get it. It's not like out loud laughing funny.
We won't be at the Laugh Factory.
Yeah,
we won't be at ha-has in Cleveland.
It's more like, oh, well, I see what you did. That's nice.
I mean, you know what it is?
What?
It's just that they're telling jokes to themselves.
Yeah,
sometimes that is funny.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
to be near someone who is making themselves laugh.
And as
much as we like make fun of it, like if someone genuinely tickles themselves, like it's nice to be around.
Good for you. Like you're giving good energy out there. That's really funny.
Good on you, scientists.
Love that for you.
You old so-and-so.
Find your joys, you know? Find your whimsies with your awe.
Marie Kondo approves. Well,
you had to bring her into this.
Well, you know, it gave them joy, so they kept that joke. They also love acronyms, you know.
Oh, for sure. And initialisms. Just shorten it, because otherwise it's cuter that way. You know, it's part of making it cute.
Maybe scientists need to be on the cutie corner.
Oh, wow. a new idea.
Great.
Okay, cool.
Well, love you, mean it. Bye. Was there a big